Good afternoon, this is Roger Thunder, the Desert Shaman. I wish I was saying it was the tropical shaman or the beach shaman today, and in this last month, because it has been horrific here in the desert as far as temperatures go. Triple digits, and we're talking about up to 114, 115. I think we're going to get a respite today, and it's going to be 105. It's crazy. I'm just going to wax on and wax off today about all kinds of fucking things. I think that the high heat index and the high heat, and this is not just where I live, this is all across the United States. Okay, if you go to like WeatherBug or some weather channel online and you look at the map, it's all red and dark red and periods of darker red. Where is this fucking heat coming from? This is absurd. I'm thinking possibly that it's going to break here pretty soon. But anyway, that's my intro for today. Let's talk about war. Let's talk about the geopolitical situation. Let's talk about the times that we're living in right now. The times that we are living in, if you were to go to prophecy, okay, and there's all kinds of prophecy. There's Hopi prophecy, and there's biblical prophecy. And let me state, that I do look at biblical prophecy. I don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Now, I know that there's a lot of misleading narratives and lies, let's just say misleading narratives for those with a thin skin, but there's all kinds of misleading narratives, but there's also kernels of truth in any sacred writings or any biblical or other scriptures of other origins besides biblical. But I must say that I have thoroughly looked at the biblical portion as well, and sometimes have compared that with Hopi prophecy and other prophecies. So let me say, from the point of view of, let's say, the biblical narrative, right now we are in what you would call the Great Tribulation. The Great Tribulation. According to them, okay. This Great Tribulation is one of the darkest times in the history of the world. Let's put it that way. It's one of the darkest times in the history of the world. And the word tribulation means having a real hard time. Everybody will be, or is currently. Let's hope that this Great Tribulation gets over with soon, okay? Now, there's other parts of the Bible that I look at that might indicate what's going on or what's happening right now in our arena here, this world, this planet, this worldview, this whatever this is, okay? If you look at biblical narrative, if you look at, let's say, the writings of Daniel and Ezekiel and Isaiah and all these guys that were supposedly quote-unquote prophets, you see all kinds of things that may very well be prophetic, okay? Some of these things would be like, let's say you wanted to study about Babylon the Great, or Babylon the Great falling, or something of that nature, which is mentioned many times. According to prophecy, there would be certain events that would lead up to what we're experiencing, or let's say maybe in the course of what we're experiencing right now. So one of the events is spoken of by these prophets, and I think it could probably be the book of Daniel. I'm just doing this right off the top of my head, but it speaks of nations, okay, and kings, okay, and the nations and the kings are spoken of as the king of the north and the king of the south, all right? King of the north and the king of the south. Now this king of the south, it says, would push against the king of the north. The king of the south would push and push and push and push the king of the north, almost like pushing the king of the north into a corner where the king of the north finally doesn't have any option but to respond in a very, very, let's say, decisive way, okay, against the king of the south. Now, this king of the south is represented by the West and America in that faction, and the king of the north would be Russia, all right? This is the way it's playing out. This is the way it's playing out. So we can see right now that the king of the south is pushing and pushing Russia. Push, push, push until there is no, and has been pushing for a long time, until there is no possible avenue of other than retaliation against the king of the south. Okay, now let's get back to the Great Tribulation here. You'd be surprised how much I know about the Bible and that whole ball of wax, if you will. I don't just limit my study of ancient scripture to just the Bible, but I have also researched all kinds of the Upanishads and the Sumerian scrolls and the Bhagavad Gita and the whole works, okay? Let's get back to the Great Tribulation. Let's get back to where we are right now. So in this pushing action of the king of the south against the king of the north, there arises what would be called the Battle of Megiddo, okay? And Megiddo was actually a plain or a valley outside Jerusalem where they would throw trash, okay? It was a trash heap. They burned trash there, and there was all kinds of horrific things in there. Dead bodies, trash, dogs, whatever, anything they wanted to throw away was in this trash heap. And then there was the plain of Megiddo, where there was supposedly battles that have taken place there. So when you put this Megiddo, okay, that's where the term Armageddon or Armageddon comes from. It's a metaphor, okay? It's a prototype, a metaphor, an example, a different way of saying Megiddo, Armageddon. And so what we got going here, okay, this is the biblical narrative, the prophecy. What we got going here is the king of the south pushing the king of the north. They're arising a battle, okay, and in that battle, that would bring about some kind of war on a very high level. Let's say that. Some kind of spiritual war, a reckoning, a spiritual war, good against evil. And you could say it could be the archons against the mankind, or you could say it would be the demons, or you could say it could be the devil, or you could use all kinds of phrases or metaphors or archetypes to indicate what's going on here. All right? Now let's step outside the biblical thing. I just wanted to put that out there, because what is also spoken of, let's say in Hopi prophecy, the Hopi brothers and sisters, my Hopi brothers and sisters, have talked frequently about emergence, okay? And they have talked about emerging from the fourth world into the fifth world. And they talk about the great white Pahana. Okay, who could that be? Well, nobody really knows. Maybe that's a metaphor or an archetype for the Christ consciousness, or, you know, the Yeshua, okay. Now, I've talked about Yeshua before. I've talked about Jesus, and I've talked about how that's a metaphor or a symbol, okay, Christ consciousness would be of the higher consciousness that exhibits itself in people like Yeshua or Buddha or whoever, all right? I don't condemn the man Jesus or Yeshua for what happened later on in life, or in times, or in history, concerning the misleading of the masses, okay, into a delusional concept of the Savior Son and the reappearance in the clouds of the Savior Son and all that good stuff, all right? I don't necessarily, okay, judge the man by the narrative, all right? There's not enough known about, but I will say this, When Jesus condemned the scribes and the Pharisees, I know I'm jumping around here a little, I'm not forgetting about Pahana and the Hopis, okay? When he condemned the scribes and the Pharisees, he said, your God is not my God, basically. He condemned them. My God is a God of love and mercy and kindness, as opposed to some of the depictions of the Yahweh God, all right? Back to the Hopis here. So I was talking about the great white Pahana. Let's connect these two things up. The great white Pahana could be a consciousness, a Christ consciousness, all right? The second coming of Christ could be a Christ consciousness, all right? It could be a higher vibrational consciousness that spreads around the earth, or comes at a certain time, all right? Now, Paramahansa, who was a great one of my teachers along the line, who was a great yogi, wrote 2 or 3 or 4 books spelling out in exact detail how the second coming of Christ was a Christ consciousness, okay? Not an actual Christ coming in the sky. It would be a Christ consciousness, okay? There is nothing that is out there that can disprove what I'm saying here. There's nothing out there that can, let's say, prove it or disprove it, you know. There's nothing out there that can prove it or disprove it. But it seems to me that if you have a great tribulation, okay, and you have a great, let's say, friction, and a great animosity happening on a high spiritual level, that would be the Christ consciousness taking over, okay, or eliminating this dark consciousness. And yeah, I know, I mean, it's typified, or let's say it's portrayed in a different way in the Bible than it is, let's say, in other scriptures, or you know, other writings, or the Sumerian tablets, or let's say the ancient teachings of the Hopi, or the Anasazi, or other indigenous people around the world. It doesn't make any difference. It doesn't make any difference. It is what it is. Okay, you can put all kinds of names. You can have all kinds of Bible stories. You can have all kinds of Hopi stories. You can have all kinds of Gnostic stories. You can have all kinds of alien stories. All right? But it doesn't make a bit of difference as to what the stories are. What's happening is all the same. Doesn't take a rocket scientist to kind of figure this shit out. You look around at what's going on, like with the Ukraine war right now. Well, that all originated from a pushing action, the king of the South against the king of the North, if you will. Pushing Russia into a corner. Now we got this battlefield here. And there hasn't been a war like this in a long time. I mean, a conventional war, okay? Now, so far it's conventional. So far it's conventional. It may not be forever. Let's get into more prophecy here. Let's get into some of the prophecy in the, you know, the Hopi prophecy, which I put a lot of weight in, by the way. Talks about the gourd of ashes, okay? Now, the gourd of ashes is the atomic nuclear bomb, okay? Gourd of ashes is the atomic bomb. And they speak of that, and they speak of the use of it. And it's already been used, okay? It's already been used. And then other writings, maybe in the Bible or biblical writings or whatever, talk about them having, them being able to use, let's say, partially use, or let's say limited or tactical nuclear weapons, that they will get a chance to use them, all right, before all this plays out, all right? Now, when it says that, it doesn't say the world will be destroyed completely. It doesn't indicate that. Nothing indicates that the world will be destroyed completely by this use of the gourd of ashes, let's say. Now, some might say, well, the gourd of ashes has already been used in Japan when we bombed the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Some people might say that. Well, that's entirely possible. I'm not ruling that out. I'm not ruling that out at all. But I'm also not ruling out the fact that it could accelerate further. Now, what we're seeing right now, what we're witnessing right now, we are in what I would call, or what the narrative would call, the Great Tribulation. Very trying times. Very trying times. I mean, look around you and look at what's happening in the world. You got everything is gone off the rails, okay? Everything, morality has completely gone off the rails in the West. You got LGBTQ, you got all these sex change operation things, you got human trafficking at a very high rate. Incidentally, if you want to see a good movie on that, go see Sound of Freedom by Mel Gibson, okay, about human trafficking, kids. I digress, though. You got an imbalance in the weather. You've got all kinds of imbalance in the financial system. What's happening here is to a T what's described in narrative, in the biblical narrative. Times hard to deal with shall be here. Times nation against nation, brother against brother, every man's hand against his brother. A preponderance of evil, a preponderance of the negative, a preponderance of the yin, okay, of the darkness. There's no denying what's going on right now in the world. What you have to realize, okay, is that it's all happening on a very high level, on a very high, almost like a quickening, a kind of almost like, what's the best way I could describe this? Maybe it's on a, when I say quickening, I mean like higher, a fast frequency, a fast buzzing. Can you feel it? Can you feel it ramping up? Can you feel it increasing to this high pitched, feverish situation? I can just feel it, man. It's, I mean, it can also feel very heavy, okay? It can also feel like, whoa. There's this heavy feeling, okay? That is like you're carrying a huge burden on your back or something. People just want relief. They just want relief. They want peace, okay? They want out of it. They want out of this predicament that we're in. And it doesn't seem like there's a way out. Is there a way out? Well, eventually what's going to happen here is it's going to get to such a high-pitched, feverish thing that something's going to snap. Something's got to break. It's kind of like having a baby or whatever. It's kind of like, the birth pangs. That's what we're in right now, and it's excruciatingly, especially for people like myself and other, let's say, shamanistic people or people that are on a very sensitive, have sensitive feelers. It's very intense, okay? And even the normal person can feel it, but they don't realize what they're feeling, right? They don't realize exactly what they're feeling here. They just know that they're stressed out, anxiety, and it's everything. Like I say, it's going to affect the whole ball of wax, the whole environment, the whole worldview, the whole illusion and the delusion. It's going to affect everything. All right? Weather, hot weather, extremely fucking violent weather, tornadoes, thunderstorms, human emotions, people flipping out, mass murders, wars, rumors of wars, the blood shall run in the streets. I mean, you look at what's happening around the world right now. There isn't a country that is out there that doesn't have major fucking protests, major killings, major war, major deceit. And nothing that is coming out of the mouths of the leaders of these nations is truth. Nothing. Okay, so let's jump back a minute to the biblical thing again, okay? The reason that this is all happening according to that narrative, I'll just take it for what it's worth, okay? I'm not saying that this is gospel or that you got to believe. I'm just looking. See, I'm a person that looks at all different nooks and crannies here. I'll look into the alien thing. I'll look into the Anunnaki thing. I'll look into the biblical thing. I'll look into the Hopi thing. I'll look into this, the Sumerian thing. I'll look into everything. I look into every nook and cranny, okay? I cover it all. He shall put he shall put hooks in their jaws, okay, and drag them to this final conflict. Drag them in there, using the nations, okay, for this final gambit, or this final outcome, or this final battle across the world, or this final spiritual war. He shall put hooks in their jaws and pull them. All right, that's a biblical narrative. You have to look everywhere to see how things, match up or mesh. Like I said in my last video, mesh. Things have to mesh. So just look at it this way, people. We're in a period of time, and some people call it the Kali Yuga, or the end of the Kali Yuga. Some people call it the Great Tribulation. Some people call it Armageddon. Some people call it the Second Coming. But this Second Coming, again, is a Christ consciousness. Now, how is this all going to play out? How is it all going to end? Well, this is my viewpoint. This is what I would hope. Okay. I see this as a dimensional shift. This is how I would think, or my higher intuition, or my thoughts, let's say. And again, it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter about aliens or galactic brothers or archons or this and that and this and that. That's all misleading stuff in a way. Get down to the nitty-gritty. Boil it down. What does it all mean? A dimensional shift, I'm thinking. I'm feeling. That would be the best outcome, okay? And what do I mean by a dimensional shift? Well, we're living in 11 different dimensions, supposedly, according to physics and, the law of physics and the string theory and all that stuff. Okay, we're living in 11 different dimensions, or maybe there's just 3, or maybe they don't know. unless they've been there. But let's say there was a parallel world in another dimension, another Earth, another you, another me, another group of people, another mankind, that somehow didn't get interfered with along the line somewhere, that is living a perfectly normal, healthy, long life, longevity for everybody, just this superb utopian worldview or planet or whatever, reality. What happens when this reaches a critical juncture here? What happens? Boom! It snaps over in a twinkling of an eye, and that's mentioned in the Bible too. Things shall be changed in the twinkling of an eye, so quick that you don't even know what the fuck happened, all right? So it could be, boom, you're in that other dimension, and that other dimension is a beautiful dimension. It's the end of darkness. It's the beginning of light, or it is light. That is one possible explanation as to what's going to happen here. It's almost like when you stretch out a rubber band and you let it snap. It could be that quick, okay, in a twinkling of an eye. Those who are on the right level of consciousness and are, let's say, ready for this, will be the ones that experience it. All the rest, I don't know. You know, the jury's out on what will happen to those people. And I think that would probably most likely depend on where their heart is. Okay, because the heart, where your heart is where your consciousness or where your heart is where your heart is. Do you have a good heart or do you have a bad heart? You know, do you have a good heart? Do you have compassion? Do you have love? Do you have caring for your fellow man? Or are you just caught up in a deranged syndrome here that is permeating this earth with all kinds of immorality and backwardsness and male being female and female being male and confusion and chaos and every man's hand against his brother? Are you all wrapped up in that? Are you part of that? Are you like a last man standing? A last man standing just sitting there going, wow, I got a good heart. I want goodness for my family and my friends and my neighbors and the world at large. Okay. Purifying your heart center. Purifying your heart center. Go into that chakra, that energy center. Standing in that energy center. Standing in heart awareness. That is the key. That's the key to getting through all this shit. Because there's no controlling it. There's no controlling it. Nobody can control this. Not puny man in his sitting in the White House, or no leader. Now I will say Russia does seem to be playing a role on, let's say, a moral level. They don't allow any of the shit that goes on here in America over there. The leader there cares about his people to the point of even preventing any kind of LGBTQ or sex change operations or any of that stuff. So I would say he's on the leading edge of the moral high ground, all right? So it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out, won't it? Hot time in the old town tonight. Hot time, hot time, hot time. I'll leave it there. Just waxing on and waxing off about stuff I know or don't know. Might not know my ass from a hole in the ground, but hey. I'll put it out there anyway for your consideration and comments. See what comes up. Alright. Back to the hot day here in the desert. I'm thinking about becoming the, instead of the desert shaman, I think I'm going to become the fir tree shaman or the forest shaman or something. There's got to be a way, somehow. I think I'm due for a change here. Change in locale. Not sure how that might be done. Or is going to be done. But definitely seeking ideas and inspiration and intuition on maybe making a physical location change. Of course, all that depends on finances, so we'll see. I'm open to donations, by the way, at spiritofcrazyhorse.com. Spiritofcrazyhorse, all one word, .com. It's in the show notes. Donate what you will, or just offer me suggestions and comments. That'll do too. Adios.